Fans, we are back on the Cheap Heat Productions podcast empire with a much anticipated interview. My name is Jack Kilby, no gimmicks guy on the socials. And I have a very special guest today whose book is dropping right now when you see this. It is called Young's Time. Here's the cover. You're going to want to make sure you listen to where to pick this up because he is the one and only former WCW and WWF superstar, Mr. Jimmy Yang. Jimmy, thanks for coming on today, sir.
Howdy, Jack. How the hell are you? It's your boy, Jimmy Wang Yang. Top of the morning to you. Just kidding. That's today I'm not Jimmy Wang Yang. I'm James Young. Young's Time. It dropped today on Amazon. It's on audiobooks on Apple, Spotify, other streaming service or whatever they call that. The books, the hardcovers on lulu.com, also on jazzyyang.com, so top of the morning to you. What does, do y'all say that? Right?
We are an international podcast in that we're based in Ireland, the Emerald Isle, but also in Canada where I am at, and we do most definitely say that. And I'm really interested to get into the nuts and bolts of the book because we've had a tremendous fan response in terms of questions. You're quite a memorable individual. Of course, not only from your WWE run with that character, but also WCW. Some of the highlights of WCW at the end of that company's run. But before we get into all that good stuff, what was the motivating factor for you to write your autobiography at this point in time? And do you think the fans are going to be surprised by some of the content?
I think everybody's going to be really surprised, So I've been thinking about doing a book for probably 20 plus years, but really I was embarrassed of my childhood and how I was raised and what I had to go through as a young child. So but people always close to me, always suggested me to write a book and say, man, dude, your story's crazy. I grew up on food stamps and ramen. My parents got separated at 10 years old. My dad left and rarely ever came back, and my mom's in a religious cult, so, and then hurdles that I had to get through to get to what I did in professional wrestling. And, friends always suggest, dude, that's a great story. You could, what you overcame to become who you are, that could help somebody, I'm like, I don't look at myself as that kind of person, I'm like, I don't know, and then they just kept on to me about it. It's like, dude, you really need to tell your story. It could help, so that's kind of the motivating factor. It's like, maybe I could help one person with their struggles, because I went through a lot, and that's basically the motivation behind writing the book, so.
Mm-hmm. I know you've been teasing up to today and the release. You've been teasing some of the chapters in your book, and one of the things that stood out to me was the fact that you were an individual that really had a goal, and professional wrestling, as everyone knows now, is a very dog eat dog kind of business. And before we talk about your training process and how you had an encounter with DDP that kind of made it happen, what was inside of you that made you, despite the adversity, all the critics, the people that wanted to tear you down, you really became a memorable individual and cut a path in the industry yourself. What was it inside of you that made you overcome that adversity?
So what motivated me first, like Sting, when I first saw Sting on TV, he became my hero instantly. I love that dude. Like I was glued to the TV Saturday nights. Like so, I'm like, my dad kind of left. So like it's kind of like Sting was like my father like figure. Like I had that connection with him. Like I live my life how Sting lives his life. He's the ultimate good guy. Like he stood up to people, all that kind of stuff. So like uh to motivate me to get in, like that's what motivated me for professional wrestling. But like the biggest motivation for me to try to become successful was just being poor. I was
Mm,
hungry. I wanted
mm,
wanted to eat. Like so, like my
mm,
work ethic was kind of built around that. Like I started cutting grasses at like 11, 12 years old because I just wanted money to eat, basically. So like and then so go on with your question. What was that question? Motivate? Go ahead.
Well, just that I think you answered it really. You wanted to be a success financially, but you overcame, which you discuss in your book, a lot of adversity that, a lot of people, for example, idolize a particular wrestler when they're younger, and they try and make a go of it in the business, and they find out that it's quite a difficult endeavor, and you succeeded just in terms of that ultimate motivation, that confidence that you had inside of yourself when you have so many doors slammed in your face, to have that within you to make it in the industry, which you certainly did.
Yeah, yeah, that's yeah. So like yeah, it's basically I believe in destiny and everything happens for a reason. And like it just I was put on this planet to be a professional wrestler, and everything I had to go through, the timing and everything, like being in the right place, right time, meeting the right person at the right time, meeting that DDP that motivated me. Like when I told him, because everybody used to make fun of me when I told him I was going to be a professional wrestler. They're like, oh yeah, you're too small, you're too little. But that night on Halloween, meeting DDP, like one sentence changed my life from DDP. Like I told him, like, I told him, say, hey, I know how to wrestle. And he told me, hey, when you get old enough, come back. I'll take you down to the WCW power plant. I was like, what? Like this can actually happen, like I didn't think it was going to happen, but but DDP is telling me when I get old enough, I can come back and he'll take me down there. So they lit a torch in my ass, like I was like, oh my God, I got to get bigger. I got to start studying wrestling. I got to do all this stuff. Like really like DDP, like, like he really changed my life in one sentence. And I know he was just bullshitting at the time, talking to a 16-year-old kid, just like, oh yeah, whatever, I'll take you down there, but that, that lit a torch, for me. And I just did everything possible to learn wrestling and become a wrestler. And hopefully when I turned 18, DDP was going to take me to the power plant. So.
Mm-hmm. And I've had the fortunate circumstance to interview a number of WCW talents that trained at the power plant, and the man himself, Sergeant Buddy Lee Parker. What was your experience like in the power plant? We've heard, and I just interviewed Scott Vick, Sick Boy, a couple of days ago, and he talked about the physicality involved in the power plant training process. What was yours like?
Yeah, it was same as Scott and everybody else, is the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But a funny story about Sarge and that me being at power plant, so the first day, we got hired by Chris Canyon. He told us we need to go to a power plant, do some training. So me and my partner Ryan Forrester show up, and we go into the door, and at the door it's Shane Helms and Shannon Moore, and where there's the cruiserweights. The 4 cruiserweights were all like 180 pounds soaking wet, so we knock on the door and we ask them, say, hey, we're here to meet Paul Orndorff. And there's like, oh, whoa, wait a minute, like you guys are way too little to be wrestlers, So like I said, no, we're here. We're here to see Paul Orndorff. We have a meeting with him. And then it took like took felt like it took forever to get inside. And finally we get inside, and first person we see is Sarge. He's like, Sarge, so I said, hey, Sarge, how you doing? I'm Jimmy, Ryan, Shannon, Shane, like, we're here to meet Paul Orndorff. There's like, no, you're not. I don't know why you guys are here. What are you doing here? I said, we're here to meet Paul Orndorff. He said, no, you're not. Go stand in the corner, and I'll figure things out, so all four of us go stand in the corner, and it's like first time meeting each other. So like kind of like joking with them and, trying to break the ice kind of thing. And also I cut a joke and we're all laughing like, and Sarge stared at us, what the fuck are you guys laughing at? You want a fucking tryout? Let's have a fucking tryout. He brought us over there and just like try to kill us, like for the next few hours, and just like, just try to kill us really, and then, that was my first impression of Sarge, like, yeah. And then, and then they got over, and then the next day we showed up again, and then Paul showed up, Paul was there. So I said, hey, Paul, we came yesterday. Oh, sorry about that. What did you guys do yesterday? I said, oh, well, they tried to murder us, says, what? Like, why they do that? You guys already have contracts. Hey, everybody, these four already have contracts. They didn't have to do what y'all did to them yesterday, and it was like, so the first day was really hard, but then the next days were hard, but just not as hard as that first day.
When you found out that you were going to be a part of the Young Dragons in WCW, what went through your mind? Because the cruiserweight division was already well established in WCW. It was a highlight of all the programming during the Monday Night Wars leading up to this period of time. How did you find out you were going to be part of a faction? And then you just touched on it, that feud with 3 Count was no doubt one of the highlights of the final run of WCW. What do you remember from that in terms of being in the ring and some of the most amazing matches that you all had?
So becoming a Young Dragon. So like this, the book's going to tell a lot about this story, but we're skipping like, because I know a lot of people don't know the history of myself, so like that power plant, we did that power plant, right? And we got brought in because Eric Bischoff was going to do the first reality show, like Tough Enough, so like I was there at the power plant, training Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, all that kind of stuff. And then 4 months later, Bischoff left the company. 4 months later, they fired me, and a whole bunch of other cruiserweights. Like, and I took that really hard. I'm like, oh my God, this was my dream job. And I did everything they told me to do. I showed up early, stayed late, did anything they asked, and then all of a sudden I didn't know politics and wrestling at the time, so like, oh, you guys part of Bischoff, so you guys are fired. So they fired a lot of us. And I was like, I took it really hard. I was devastated because I grew up as a WCW guy. I idolized Sting. I watched every Saturday night, Clash of Champions, all that stuff. And I got this job, and 4 months later, I get fired I thought for no reason, but it's just because I was associated with Eric Bischoff. And I'm like, man, I tried going into hiding. I was like, because everybody in my county knew I signed with WCW, and I was like, oh my goodness, like, what's going to happen? And like, and all of a sudden, I wanted it so bad. I'm like, man, I want to get back, So like, one day, I grew a big set of tidbits, and like, I got my stuff, and I went back to WCW, knocked on the door, went straight to Paul Orndorff's office, and had a meeting with him. I said, Paul, hey, if you need me, I'm ready. Like, I just want that chance to prove to you and prove to everybody else that I can do this, And then a week later, Paul called me and said, hey, we need you for Saturday night. So I was like, what? Like, oh my God, this is happening. Like, it just a few months ago, I just got fired and got my heart ripped out of me. and then I went back there and manned up and I went in his office and, hey, if you need me, I'm ready, I promise you. And then the week after, then he calls me, and then I had to go up to Amherst, Massachusetts. I'm like, where the fuck's Amherst, Massachusetts at? So I'm like, whatever, but then we get to do the Saturday night, and the first night went great, and that was my first WCW Saturday night, and I main evented with Dale Torborg, the Demon, so I'm like, well, this is crazy, and then everybody liked the match, and then afterwards they invited me back to the second round of tapings. And then the second round of tapings, that's when Jimmy Hart came up to me. I said, hey, I'm going to put you in a group with Kaz Hayashi and Jamie, but we're going to put a mask on him and make him Jamie's son, and you guys are going to wrestle 3 count. I'm like, what? This is awesome. I'm going to be a character on WCW. It's like just a year before. 2 years before, I was having WCW Nitro parties and I was dressing up as all these guys, and I was, I know you probably know that story about me stalking DDP and Halloween and stuff, but I was 16-year-old, dressing up as Sting anytime I could, and now I'm in the locker room with this guy. I'm like, what? This is crazy, so that was crazy. And then with 3 count, Shane, Shannon, and Evan with us 3, that chemistry was awesome. We didn't hit it off right away. We did hit Shane and I hit it off at the power plant, but then we got up on the main roster and then we kind of were fighting each other a lot at the beginning, but then we everything worked out and we had that great rivalry at the end of WCW.
Yeah, definitely some extremely, for an audience that really thought that they saw it all, so to speak, in terms of high flying offense. You guys, man, put a clinic on with innovative offense, even when the bar was that high. First fan question that I got sent to me is asking about a man whose career you overlapped in terms of WCW, but also into WWE. I don't think, according to my research, that you ever faced him in ring, but this fan is asking about your experience dealing with Chris Benoit.
Yeah, we actually have been in ring, but house shows kind of matches. Usually I say no comment to this person. I don't care anything about his wrestling ability now. It's what he did is disqualifies him to me as a wrestler. So and that's the first question. Oh my goodness.
It's a tough one. Yeah. I think they were alluding to the fact that when WWE did that memorial before they found out the information and you were on stage, they kind of got the impression that you were less than comfortable based on some kind of knowledge that you had about the man himself.
Yeah. So, okay, I'm going to expose this to you guys and everybody else. So I remember that meeting we had in Corpus Christi, Texas, so the week before Vince got blew up by the limo. And so we had the memorial service at Corpus Christi. They bring us into the arena, right? And I sit down, and this is a kind of the crazy story. I'm looking around and I look behind me, and it's Bruce Campbell is right behind me, Army of Darkness. I was like, oh my God, Bruce Campbell, I fucking love you. I'm sorry, cussing too much, but I love you. I love Army of Darkness, Ash, Evil Dead, all this stuff. I'd say, okay, I want to talk to you right after this, right? So and I turn around and Vince is there, and all of a sudden I hear Vicky Guerrero screech oh my God, no! I'm like, oh shit, what the fuck? Sorry, cussing again.
Don't worry about it.
Then turn around and Vince announced what happened, they found Chris dead, his wife and his kid. And I looked directly to Brian Kendrick and I looked at him. And I was like, "Yep, he finally did it, huh?" You know, like he finally snapped and did that horrible act. You know, like and Brian, we both thought the same thing. You know, from our previous experience with him. You know, like he, you know, but I did after that. I was like, no, I don't want to think that. You know, like he did have this mansion in Atlanta. Maybe somebody robbed him and killed him and his family. You know, so I was like, oh, you know, like you know, it was a crazy mixed emotions at that time. You know, so uh, and then you know, the next day they say, hey, we are going to do a tribute show to Chris the next day. So, you know, just my gut felt weird. You know, I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a tribute match to Chris Benoit. Like, I'm not, you know, I need to see some more facts about what happened and what, you know, all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, during the day, all that stuff, things started to leak out. And I no showed SmackDown because I didn't want I didn't want to be part of anything associated with what happened. You know, it's like I see, I'm not going. You know, like I didn't go to SmackDown. You know, I no showed SmackDown because I just, you know, I just didn't feel comfortable in the, you know, like I had a bad feeling about what happened, and then you know, I no showed SmackDown. Uh, Kind of got in trouble, but then it got cleared after everything came out. So I just don't want to be part of it, you know. So like, uh, but personally, like, I don't give a shit what wrestling match he did or all this other stuff. I don't care. Like, you know, the last thing he did that sticks with me. So like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so. Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that so candidly. I certainly concur with your position on him. But when you joined WWE, you were Tajiri's enforcer. That was a big shift from your WCW days. How did that come together? And what did you face any challenges adapting? Because you know we've heard a lot about how former WCW talent had somewhat of a rough ride when acclimatizing after you know all is said and done to WWE.
Okay, so like the Keo gimmick that was actually my second run in WWE. Like after WCW, I went up there in HWA, and then 6 months I got fired, and then I went over to All Japan Pro Wrestling. So like, you know, I was doing really well over there, and like things were. That's the first time I felt famous. It's like a main eventing the Corgan Hall against the Great Muta. Like, what is going on? This is crazy, you know. So like, I was, you know, going back and forth from Japan to the States. Japan, like, I would fly to and from, you know, 4 flights to Japan, back to the States, back to Japan, back to the States, uh, 4 times a month. You know, so it's crazy. Like his schedule is getting crazy. But I was doing really well, getting paid really good money. But back home, you know, I had a girlfriend, and like I was doing my Wang Yang thing when I was at home. If you know, you know, so it's like, you know, so like go wrestle, come home, and you know, do my Wang Yang thing with her, and I got her pregnant. You know, so like, and so that started messing with me, and the travel, the wrestling, and all this kind of stuff. But what really hit me is I took a tour knowing my daughter was going to be born. Like I was going to say, I take this tour. I'm going to get home on this day, and the next day she's going to give birth to my baby girl. You know, so I said, okay, I'll take it. You know, I'm going to do wrestling. I'm going to make us some money. You know, all that kind of stuff. And so I went there, and then my daughter was a week early, so I missed her birth. You know, so like, and I was on the phone with her and all that kind of stuff, but it's not the same. But like when I finally got back to the States, you know, I just remember going up that escalator, you know, like escalator, and it's like, oh my God, I'm a dad, you know, but like I didn't think fatherhood was gonna hit me that hard. But when I got up the escalator and I saw my baby, I was like, and she bring it to me, like just something just hit me so hard. I was like, oh my God, you know, and then I I held her for the first time, and she's like looking at me. I'm like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. This is like the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. You know, this is my baby. Like, oh my God, like how did, you know, how does that? I know how it happened. I was about to say, I know how it happened for sure, you know, but like, it's just like seeing your offspring, you know, it's like, oh my God, you know, whatever. So like, and get home and I, you know, like, I'm just, you know, I won't let her down, you know, and I have to protect her. I'm dad. Like, if she's hungry or burp, change her diaper, whatever, I got you, baby. You know, like that kind of situation. Then 5 days later, I had to leave to go back to Japan. I'm like,
Mm.
oh no, how am I going to do this? You know, like, you know, that was the hardest wrestling trip I've ever been on in my life, you know, so I had to go and I was gone for like 3 weeks, you know, like it's like go home, see your baby, and then 5 days, and then you got to go back and go be wrestler, you know. I'm like, oh my God, that hit me so hard. And, you know, that's when I was over there sitting in the hotel, just drinking like crazy. Like, it's just my mind was going crazy, mentally unstable. So I said, man, I got to do something. I gotta get back to my baby, you know. So like I said, man, like if I go back to WWE, at least I can see her once a week or twice a week, but at least every week instead of being gone on the other side of the world for 2 to 3 weeks. Like I gotta try, you know. So I reached out to WWE, and they were interested. So like they say, hey, can you come down to Baton Rouge, Louisiana? I was like, yeah, I'm there. You know, like I gotta do this because I'm not gonna last in Japan if I don't
Mm.
get this job with WWE. So and then they put me in a match with Tommy Dreamer on Sunday Night Heat, and man, we killed it that night. It was really great Sunday Night Heat match. You go back and see it if you haven't seen it, but like, but and then the next day, um, I had to wrestle Rhino in New Orleans, and then uh, like a week or so later, they call and say, "Hey, we want to sign you back. Got this idea with Tajiri, and we got this other Japanese guy named Ryan Sakota. You guys going to debut at the pay per view, and Rey Mysterio versus Tajiri. You guys run in, and off you go. You know, so like, but like, that's how that started. If that was,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What in terms of that particular spot where you're you know in a featured position, did you find that to be a difficult sort of situation there? Because again, some of the former WCW talents didn't feel that they were getting you know pushed to their capacity, or was that totally different for you?
yeah, like by that time I was really seasoned. You know, like I was 100% confident in my ability. Like, like I it didn't, you know, and people knew what my Japanese career to my, you know, even my TNA short career to the WCW, so WCW wrestling. So I kind of had the respect of the locker room kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so, but like I was 100% confident at that time as a professional wrestler. Uh, that's like the other my partner Ron Skilda, he wasn't ready for that moment, you know, like, and he had a hard time, but he didn't come from WCW, you know, so like,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
I was ready. But,
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of, it's funny. I've got another fan question asking about the TNA deal and how that came together and your impressions of that character that was you know memorable to this day because we're still talking about it.
yeah, I could never live that down now. But like, so it's kind of, you know, like, oh, what are you? You know, like you're Asian redneck, flying Elvis impersonator. You're a ninja. What are you? You know, I said, but you know, I can do it all. I got range, baby. You know, but like, but that was just at the first one, it was just a favor for Jeff Jarrett and Jeremy Borash. You know, I was home in between a tour, and they say, "Hey, Jimmy, what are you doing this weekend?" I say, "Well, I'm still in the States, so like, do you mind coming down to Huntsville, Alabama, you know, to our pay-per-view. I was like, yeah, sure, why not? You know, like it's just like a favorite thing, you know. So I'm this all Japan strong style wrestler, you know, Stan Hansen, Steve Williams, you know, Kawada, all this kind of stuff. So the reputation of all Japan wrestling, right? So like I'm going down there expecting to do myself, you know, and then I remember walking in and Rick Michaels, the seamstress, he's like, "Hey Jimmy, I got your costume." I'm like, "Costume? I don't got no costume. What are you talking about?" He said, "Yeah, they got a gimmick for you." I'm like, "Gimmick? What is going on? Like, I'm not a gimmick, you know, like I'm a strong style wrestler, whatever, you know." And then went into his room and he pulled up the Elvis outfit. I was like, "This is what you're wearing tonight." I said, "Fuck no, I ain't wearing that." I was like, "There's no way." You know, what are you talking about? There's no way I'm doing that. Are you kidding me? You know, like I'm not being a Flying Elvis, you know, like in a, so it took like, few hours to convince me to do it, you know, but I'm already in Huntsville, Alabama. So I'm like, yeah, fuck it, you know, like why not? Let's just go have some fun out there, you know. And but I do love Elvis. I had sideburns because of Elvis, and I love his music. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's go do it. And then we did it, and still people still talking about it, you know. But I only had like maybe 10 matches in TNA. So like I haven't had a lot of them, but I was the very first one and I beat AJ Styles' ass. So like so that probably made an impression on people.
Yeah, the fan also asked a part B about you know, the TNA Asylum supposedly was a, you know, a special atmosphere there in the Nashville Fairgrounds. Did you enjoy wrestling in front of that crowd?
That was interesting, you know, like for sure. So even before the TNA stuff, like I just remember one, but it was great. It was a great building, right, and great people, and it's a you know, quite a sight, you know. But like I just remember one time, me and Jamie Noble, we had to go up there actually with WCW for a guy that was kind of doing developmental system back then, like Burt Prentice. You know, I just remember going up there, and me and Jamie are the we're the evil Asian guys, right? He's really from West Virginia, but we're the evil Asian guys going to Nashville, Tennessee, and we're wrestling. I can't remember who we're wrestling, but we go outside the ring, and we're being bad guys and getting heat. Oh, everybody sucks, blah blah blah. You know, you turn around and there's a lady has her like baby. It's like 1 year old or something, like little, and the baby's going like, where's the camera at? You know, and Jamie just totally broke characters. Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. You have a 1 year old going, you know, it's like, what's going on? And so I was like, that's one of the probably craziest thing I've seen in wrestling, you know. But and then the TNA days, you know, like they would have catering for us, and it was like right down the street, and the restaurant was called White Trash Cafe.
Awesome.
So we go like, here's your catering ticket. You go down to White Trash Cafe. I was like, hell yeah, you know, give me some biscuits and gravy, some hot Nashville chicken, baby. I love it, you know. So it was quite a place, you know. So
that's incredible. You let's go to the time when a lot of fans, of course, remember you for the Jimmy Wang Yang character. Before we get into the nuts and bolts about how you reinvented yourself and got it over so well, what was, first of all, who pitched that to you, and what were you thinking when it was first put on the table?
So how that idea, you know, how that character came to life, right? Like me trying to get laid one night turned me into Asian rednecks. So it's like, what happened here? So the story is, you know, like, because I was with Ring of Honor at the time, but like I was a Keo and I got fired for the eighth time or whatever amount of time it was whatever time that time was, but like and then I was with Ring of Honor, but then WWE was coming to Lexington. I was living in Cincinnati, so it's an hour and a half away, right? So I'm this hot blonde that like loved wrestling, and I was like, oh, oh man, I need to hook it up. I just spent 2 years with this company. I know the guy that gives the tickets. I'm gonna go to impress this girl, so I go down there and I go to the back and trying to set the tickets up and all that kind of stuff with Steve Rubin. Rubin was my dude. He used to hook it up like right there, awesome seats. But then I go down there and Vince passes by me. He's like, Jimmy, where the hell you been? And I'm like, you fired me? He's like, what? I did? We're going to have to talk about this. Let me go to this rehearsal. I'll be back to talk to you. I'm like, this motherfucker didn't know he fired me, but I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but he's this billionaire running this billionaire company. He has so much on his plate every single day. So it's not too far off. He'll forget something, so I'm like, whatever. So anyways, I'm now, as he's gone, I'm like, okay, let me make sure these tickets are good for, what's going to happen later on, so like I'm in catering, and then all of a sudden like everybody runs to me like, hey, Jimmy, what are you doing? I was like, I'm eating a steak. Hey, can we use you real quick? We need you at ringside? I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever, okay, I'll go to ringside, and I go to ringside, and it's the Spirit Squad and Shawn Michaels, and that pay-per-view was, I don't remember the name of it, but it was Vince versus God, so
yes,
and something where the Spirit Squad would interfere and grab Shawn Michaels and do their finishing move through a table, right? And me and Shawn are like the same size. So it's like, hey, let's do it to Jimmy to make Shawn feel comfortable with doing the bump, So I'm like, Jimmy, you mind? I'm like, I came here for a different reason, but if you get the tickets, it's okay, whatever. That's what was in my brain. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, cool, we'll do it. And then Michael Hayes tells Vince, like, hey, Jimmy's not under contract. You think he should do it? It's like, oh, he should be under contract. Let him do it. And then they toss my ass up in the air, 20 feet in the air, go through the table. And they're like, oh, how was that? It was a bump. It wasn't that bad, but it wasn't that bad either. Or, it wasn't, it's okay. You can take it, Shawn. Like, it's not going to kill you, so. And then it's like, oh, okay, you're done. I was like, okay, cool. I'll go back to catering, eating. And then they came up to me and said, hey, can you come to Raw tomorrow? It's in Columbus. I was like, well, yeah, I can do this or I can do this, So I'm like, well, let me be a little bit smart about this. Let me try to get my contract back, So yeah, I'll be up in Columbus. I'll go to Columbus. So then got to Columbus. They put me in a match with Charlie Haas on Sunday Night Heat. Went out there, we killed it. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Now tonight's the night. Like, oh, now the girl came to the shows, the pay-per-view. Then they came to Raw, saw me perform. This is gonna be, it's gonna be a night, And then they came to me and said, hey, can you come to Cincinnati for SmackDown tomorrow? I'm like, and that's my hometown, or that was my hometown. So I'm like, yeah, I guess I'll come SmackDown, And then when I walked in, they got me and said, hey, yeah, we want to hire you back, So like, I was like, cool, but this was my third time with the company. So I'm like, man, I want to go thank Vince, it's kind of unheard of wrestlers coming back that many times. And I was like, knocked on his door and like, hey, Vince. And he said, oh, Jimmy, come in. Come in. So I didn't know you were fired, but whatever. But, last time I didn't let you talk because you're this Korean dude that grew up in Georgia. I'm like, okay. I say, but we're going to make a negative out of positives this time. Like, I'm going to make you the Asian redneck. That's funny. And your name's going to be Jimmy Wang Yang. That rhymes. That's hilarious. I was like, what is going on in this room right here? I say, hey, boss, as long as that check comes every Monday, I'm cool to do whatever you want. You know, say, okay, good. I'll see you soon. Now get out of my office. You know, so I was like, close the door. I was like, what just happened? Like that was so weird, you know, but so awesome at the same time. And then, you know, after that, then I got to celebrate with the girl after the show. So it was a pretty good weekend for your boy, you know. So
Sounds like it. Sounds like it. How did you? Noting that some folks forget that professional wrestling is got a long history of being provocative or whatnot. Were you aware of any of the criticism of the character? You know, not at a Muhammad Hassan level or anything like that, but some folks, you know, on the internet and whatnot, you know, forgot that it was a wrestling character, and they criticized it in terms of being, you know, disrespectful, et cetera, et cetera. Were you aware of any of that, and did that influence you one way or the other?
no, but like you know, our jobs as professional wrestlers is to make people talk about professional wrestling. So like it's a little different mindset as a wrestler. Like as long as they're talking, it's good. You know, it's like that's what we want. You know, like if they're not talking, that's bad. You know, so like, but I wonder what the criticism was about it. What do you think?
Just that it was disrespectful to Asian Americans as you know a disrespectful sort of stereotype of you know just because it was a fantastical portrayal. It was something that hadn't been done before. There was some that were saying it was, you know, here goes the WWE again, you know, playing fast and loose with stereotypes. But I never understood that because I don't believe there's ever been an Asian redneck character before. But some people you can't please.
But that's the thing. It's like what, like I know to you, but like to me, taking offense to things like me, you know, I'm Korean and I always was portrayed as a Japanese guy, you know, but like it's like, okay, that's a little bit more offensive to my people. It's a, you know, because, you know, a lot of people think we're all the same, you know. So it's like, you know, well, you know, so it's like Chinese, Japanese, you know, Korean, you know, Filipino, like, oh, you guys are all the same. I said, no, there's different countries, you know, like, and that's more offensive. It's like, oh, you know, that guy can be Asian. He just put a mask on him, you know, or something like that, you know, like that's more offensive. Like, but being an Asian American guy, you know, like I am a half Korean dude that grew up in Georgia, you know, like, but like I'm not really a redneck. I have some redneck tendencies. Like even that's a offense was probably how I would take it is I was making fun of all of my redneck friends that I grew up with as that character, you know. So that was my inspiration is going to the people I grew up with. I'm like, am I, you know, are you, you know, like that was, you know, kind of. I wonder who got offended. Like, oh, you treat an Asian guy like Asian American, but he is Asian American and he is half Korean that grew up in Georgia. Like, but you know, like, I don't know. But the offense with the Asian people, like, oh, you all you guys look alike. You can be Japanese, Chinese, Korean, you know, like so that's. But I know people don't see that on that side of it. But like, it's like, you know, so.
Yeah, excellent point. Like the old the devious malevolent stereotype. That's fine, but some people objected to this. Of course, I got about 10,000 questions about this character. One wanted to know about your favorite moment during this particular run with this character.
Jimmy Wang Yang.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so my favorite moment was probably when I saw myself on a video game. You know, I was like, you know, as a wrestler, like, man, you know, like in, you know, Akio got one action figure, but like, but Jimmy Wang Yang, you know, like got like 3 or 4 action figures and baseball cards, and like the biggest moment is like, you know, as a wrestler, you know, probably a lot, not just wrestlers, but like everybody would love to be on a video game, you know. So like, but when I saw that, I'm like, whoa, dude, this means you kind of made it, right? Like this is like, oh, you're on SmackDown versus Raw 2009, you know, and but that was a huge moment for me. And then they made me like really good on that game, like my moveset. I'm like the Liu Kang of SmackDown versus Raw, you know. So it's like, hell yeah, you know, this is awesome. But also, you know, I remember that was a big moment, but also Madison Square Garden, you know, like when the crowd reacts to you like they did, you know, like you're doing something well, you know. So like I just remember it was like a dark match for the Royal Rumble, and my music hits and comes out, and it's like one of the biggest pops I've ever heard of. I was like, oh my god, like they like me, you know. So I do my thing, and I get the win, and you know, it goes crazy, and then you know, like my hometown, Atlanta, you know, that was really awesome, and but I enjoyed, you know, like I was a big baby face during that run, so I didn't really get to wrestle other baby faces, but like that time, you know, I wrestled Hurricane Helms, Gregory Helms a lot, Chavo Guerrero a lot. And those were two of my favorite guys to ever wrestle with, you know. So like me and Hurricane, we had a match in the Philippines, Manila, in the same building that they had Ali and Frazier. So the Thriller in the Manila. So I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool, you know, like you know, so like but yeah, there's a lot of great memories with Jimmy Wang Yang, but like seeing yourself as a video game character, that's pretty cool. You know, so.
That's tough to beat, and like you said, a real ass kicking video game character. Who did you work with mostly in terms of like once the character got rolling? Did you work with a particular producer or producers mostly, and who came up with the stuff for your character? Was that just a creative team in general? Did you have somebody in particular?
I had one writer. I wish I could remember his name, but like one writer would help me with promos, you know, he would help me with promos. Man, I wish I could remember his name. So, you know, but all the wrestling, you know, like we just dealt with a lot of producers, but like it was, I think of 98% just me coming up with the stuff, you know, like because I know who I am, I know the character I want to portray, wrestling moves. That's kind of easy for me, you know, like but we had a lot of producers. My favorite producer was, you know, Ricky Steamboat, Steve Kern, Mike Rotunda, even John Laurinaitis was pretty good. He was a great producer. But one producer I didn't like was Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man.
Really?
he was kind of a dick, you know, but like like I don't know, but
a dick in terms of being too critical, or what aspect?
Just kind of belittling the talent, like because he thought he was so much better than everybody, and then he would belittle you and then try to get people to join in. It's like, oh, this guy wants to do this. Oh my god! I'm like, what are you doing? You know, so, but
well, in terms of you're on this. It seemed to me that you're finally getting the credit that you deserve. You're in a good spot. But what made you decide to leave WWE and go on to entrepreneurial endeavors? I guess around what, 2010-ish?
Yeah, wasn't my choice, but so but you know, so like but I was getting burnt out. I was beat up, frustrated, and all that kind of stuff. But basically, burnt out at that time because, you know, I was going hard since 1998, so that's like 12 years going like full time, you know, just thinking about WCW stuff, HWA stuff, Japan stuff, back to WWE, getting fired again, Ring of Honor, back to Jimmy Wang Yang, and then finally I, did what everything I kind of became a wrestler to do. I got, the video game, the action figures, the baseball cards, pay-per-view matches, all that kind of stuff. And then, then it's just running you to the ground just over and over again with the WWE schedule back then was just like nonstop, so like I was kind of burnt out. Then, but I love my wrestling career, right? So I'm the youngest ever to get signed to WCW at 18 years old. I got to wrestle full time through my 20s, right? That's the best time I think you should do wrestling because you're young, your body heals faster, so like all through my 20s. Left WWE at 29 or something. I think 29. Went back to Japan and came back and said, okay, now what do you do during your 30s? So like, okay, it's good, like I can go work for somebody or, I can try to start a business on my own, so, but that sounds better to me. I say, I'd rather be the boss, right? Like, I'd rather make big money instead of work for somebody to make them money, so like, so, and then that's when I got that entrepreneur mindset and then started trying things, I tried a pest control company. That was not great. Like that wasn't good, and then so, actually before that I had a wrestling school, pro training and that then I didn't realize like it does take a special human being to go in there and beat themselves up every day. So the wrestling school lost a lot of money, so, but it was a hard business, whatever. It's like, and I was trying to do what I was taught at the power plant. So it was probably on my fault for running people off, but like, I didn't try to run them off. I said, you just gotta be tough, so like, that didn't last. And then a pest control company, that was disgusting. Going to houses and dealing with the bugs and stuff. I'm like, oh man, I don't know. I thought it was a good idea, It was all, and then found Redneck Party Bus, Redneck Party Bus, and that thing, that was my money maker. That was like the best investment that I've done at that time. Did that for like a decade, and that went really well. And then my daughter graduated high school, so I was in Cincinnati. I finally moved back to Atlanta, so I sold the business, moved down to Atlanta, and my daughter's like, "Hey, Dad, I want to be a wrestler just like you." I'm like, ah.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about that because she's really getting good buzz out there. My goodness, you must have like you just motioned had some trepidation about that, correct?
Yeah, but then not, because there's a crazy story about her too. She got to debut at 15 in Tokyo. So like we was doing the Young Dragons reunion out there, me and Kaz Hayashi, and then they called me and said, "Hey, we want to do this 20-year reunion or something." I said, "Yeah, like I'll come, but only if I can bring my daughter." And it's like, "Oh yeah, bring her along. She can come." But I'm thinking just dad being like the super dad. Hey, baby, we get to, I want to take you to Japan. We'll go to see Pokemon and Hello Kitty, tourists, all this kind of stuff. And then Kaz's like, "Oh yeah, she can do spot in the match." I'm like, what? I don't know about that. It's daddy-daughter trip. Like, and then we got there. But my daughter's an athlete. She played basketball, volleyball, softball. Ever since she was a kid. So like I was like, man, maybe she can do a spot. So like I said, okay, we come up with a spot. Say, hey, they're gonna hit dad down, right? Like bump me off the ring. You gotta take my spot and do the hot tag, right? So it's a 15-year-old girl in the middle of Tokyo in front of 5,000 people. And then across the ring is Shannon Moore. So like you're gonna do this debut. So like so the spot comes up and I get bipped off, and I'm like so nervous and excited for her to see what she's gonna do. But like, I've seen her play sports her whole life, so I've been in the stands and all that kind of stuff. But after they bump me down, I get up, I'm on the apron, like, my God, what's going to happen? You know, like, oh my God, like, is she going to do this? You know, this is a big time moment. And all of a sudden, like, she starts whooping Shannon's ass, like, where? You know, like, oh, baby girl, get it. You know, like, and she's looking so comfortable and natural. And then Shannon shoots her off the ropes. He comes back with a big head scissors, like, hits that shit perfect. Wham! Place goes crazy. You know, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, you know, whatever. And then the match, whatever happened after the finish, all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, oh man, that was awesome. That was like the coolest thing ever, seeing your kid do the same thing as you do, you know, and then just feeling the audience and all that kind of stuff. So afterwards, we're walking to the hotel because the hotel's closed. But like in Japan, they have a lot of paparazzi for wrestling. So they're all at the lobby, you know. So I'm like walking there and like, yeah, this is my young dragon's coming back, and, you know, yeah, like first time back in a while. Phew, way past me. I'm like, what? You know, and they're interviewing her, and you know, she's signing autographs. I'm like, what? this is awesome, you know. But like, this is really awesome, you know. And then we get to the hotel room, and she's like, Dad, this is what I want to do. That was so cool. That was like the biggest rush of my life, you know. I'm like, and then at first I'm like, oh no, you know, my daughter's like so much smarter than me, straight A student, all this kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, you gonna get into wrestling, you know, like, and then people tell me, say, no, you can't let her in wrestling, man. Like, you know what goes on in wrestling, right? Yeah. I was there. I do that. I did all that stuff, you know, like, you know, and I started thinking about it. I say, well, you know, like, because I have friends that work regular jobs, like, I kind of hear the same stories at their job. You know, this craziness happens at every profession, you know, like, but with professional wrestling, the only reason I got to leave Georgia is because of professional wrestling. The only reason I've been to Japan 50 times is professional wrestling. Been to Canada so many times, you know, like, and love Canada, going over to Europe, going to Mexico, all 50 states, is because of professional wrestling. Why would I not want that for my daughter? You know, I'd rather do that than go sit at a desk Monday through Friday. You know, like, that's, you know, like, this is excitement, and like, you know, so that's.
And it's in her DNA, obviously, and it's an excellent decision thus far because, again, really getting a good buzz out there. James, I want to thank you for your time today. Your book, let's talk about that again, dropping today. It's called Young's Time, and it's an autobiographical story of yourself. Fans, if you've enjoyed this interview, I'm going to go get the book because it's a sampling of what is inside there. The man has a truly inspirational, and as you can see, extremely humorous and entertaining story himself. Where can the book be purchased, and then we'll get where the fans can keep up with you on the social media gimmicks.
Yeah, so the book dropped today. It's like Amazon has the digital book, Lulu has the hard copy book, Spotify, Apple, and Barnes and Noble has the audio book. So like, there's so many different platforms that you can buy the book. So, you know, like, you know, wrestling, we all know what wrestling is and entertainment stuff, but like, this book is the real story, you know. So this is the first time, like, this is, you know, this is kind of me breaking out of that character and just being myself, James John. You know, I did have a rough, like, I didn't have it easy growing up, you know, so I had some obstacles. But like, I hope you guys enjoy it. You know, this is coming from my heart. So, you know, so like, you know, like, but love you guys. And remember, I'm Jimmy Wang Yang, and I'm your boy. Yeehaw! Yeah, so.
I can't top that. You're on social media. I take it on Facebook at least. Any others where the fans can get more information about your happenings?
Yeah, only way you get to me is you have to go through Jazzy Yang. So jazzyyang.com. That's her website, and if you can get through her to get to me, more power to you. Like, so like, but if you want to get in touch with me, you go to jazzyyang.com. You know, so.
Perfect. Well, fans, once again, the book drops today. I'm really looking forward to getting my copy. You get yours. And thank you, James, once again for being on the Cheap Heat Productions podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Remember, I'm your boy.
You are definitely my boy. Fans, that's it for this edition. Again, make sure you pick up the book, check it out, and we'll do a review here on the channel, I'm sure, in the future. But until then, thanks very much for watching. Thank you for watching this video. Please give it a like if you enjoyed it. Be sure to follow us on all social media platforms at Cheap Heat Productions. Don't forget to hit the notification button and you won't miss any of our upcoming